There are two places you generally expect to find aircraft, either in the sky or at an airport. When they're not in either of those places, they're generally hidden away in a hangar somewhere, either waiting for their next job or enjoying their retirement. Not every aircraft sticks to those predictable locations. Sometimes they find themselves in places they're not supposed to be, and in some cases, they stay there for years. A farmer in the Stavropol region of Russia got a shock when he went out to tend to his crops this past June. There was a light aircraft standing in the middle of his field, waiting for him. From the state of the plane and also the battered remains of the crops around it, it was evident that the plane had landed hard. The pilot and crew must have survived, though, because they were nowhere to be seen. Curiously, the plane didn't have any identifying markings or documents to be found anywhere. The perplexed farmer called the police, and they set to work trying to locate the plane's pilot, but so far they've had no success. Who would ditch a plane in the middle of a field and then never come back for it? The plane wasn't too badly damaged and can still fly, so somebody has abandoned a valuable asset. Almost 60 years ago, a plane carrying the Chilean football team, Green Cross, disappeared on April 3, 1961, prompting one of the great mysteries of that era in Chilean sport. Despite extensive search and rescue operations, no trace of the team or their Douglas DC-3 aircraft was ever found. Now, that mystery has finally been resolved. Mountaineers crossing the Andes stumbled upon the wreckage of the plane while out exploring, some 215 miles south of Santiago and 10,500 feet up in the mountains. Regrettably, it was obvious from what was found at the scene that none of the team survived the initial impact. The team were returning home from an away fixture and were split into two planes. One of them landed back home safely, but this one never did. Most of the fuselage is still clearly visible, and so it could have been found at the time. It's just that the plane isn't anywhere near where the rescue teams expected it to be. Tourists in Bali routinely flock to the beautiful Pandawa Beach in the Bukit Peninsula, unaware that there's an unresolved aviation mystery just 5 minutes down the road. It's a whole Boeing 737 set down in the middle of a field and surrounded by shipping containers. Nobody knows what it's doing there, and nobody knows why it's been left to the elements. Based on the fact that it has no livery or identifying marks, it must have been in private ownership at the time it was left here. Some locals say that a local businessman bought it and planned to turn it into a restaurant, but there's no confirmation for those rumors, and this would be a strange place to put such an establishment. A small tourist industry has grown up around the plane. Since it was discovered, it's been surrounded by a fence, and a security guard now charges visitors a few dollars to take a closer look and snap a few pictures. Boeing 747 planes seem to have a habit of getting lost or abandoned, because here's another example of it happening in Hong Kong. This former Orient Thai Airlines plane is scheduled to be dismantled by the local airport authority, but some of its admirers would prefer to see it put to use as a hotel or restaurant. The 27-year-old plane was retired from service 3 years ago and then left to rot. Given its level of rust, it's unlikely it could ever fly again, but aviation enthusiasts insist that it's not a good reason to simply destroy it. The backstory is that the plane landed in March 2016, but was unable to take off again because of a mechanical fault, and the cash-strapped airline was unable to pay for repairs. Shortly thereafter, Orient Thai Airlines went bankrupt, and the Boeing was left trapped at Hong Kong's airport without an owner. If anyone does want to buy it and save it from the scrap heap, they're going to face a heavy bill. It's now been there for so long that parking charges of almost $1 million are owed against it. One of the key objectives of the annual Burning Man Festival in Nevada, USA, is to leave no trace behind when the festival is over. That means picking up all your litter and definitely not leaving your Boeing 747 for someone else to deal with. The 40-foot tall plane was a star attraction at this year's festival, But weeks after the festival came to a close, it was still standing in the desert. Flying it away isn't an option. The plane has been partially disassembled. During the festival, the fuselage of the plane was used as a unique open-air nightclub for festival attendees, and it's not immediately clear why it wasn't instantly moved when the festival closed. It's since been towed 12 miles into the Black Rock Desert, and the owners have apologized for the delay in reclaiming their property. They say they want to put it into a storage location, but unimpressed local authorities have warned that it will soon be scrapped if they don't hurry up about it. A military airport is always a good bet if you want to go and find some long-forgotten planes. And the military airport of Kukov in Albania is a particularly fine example. There are many old planes here in various states of disrepair. The base is a favorite of urban explorers who come here in droves to take pictures of some of its hidden treasures, which include a MiG-15, a MiG-19, several Yakovlev training planes, and numerous Shenyang planes, both the J-5 and J-6 models. The airport has stood on this land since 1955. It's thought that none of the planes here have flown since 1997 at the latest, when the pyramid crisis saw the Albanian Civil War break out and rebel forces stole and used several planes from here. Even though the models of aircraft you see here are a little old, both Namibia and North Korea still use MiG-19 planes for military purposes. A few of the planes are still in good enough condition to fly, but the J-5s and J-6s are doomed. Nobody has manufactured parts for them since 2005. Making restaurants out of disused planes is an idea we've mentioned a couple of times already, and this was also the idea behind the Michelangelo da Vinci restaurant in Villa Marzana, Italy. The restaurant opened in 2000, but unlike the planes it used as a centerpiece, it never got off the ground. The business failed in 2014, leaving behind these two abandoned planes and their companion helicopter. The two planes are an old Douglas DC-6 and a Tupolev Tu-134A. There's even a fake control tower set up to add to the theme. Not content with just using planes as an attraction, the eccentric restaurateur also added replicas of famous works by Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo to the walls. It's hard to imagine now, but this was once a grand place. There were swimming pools beneath the wings of the planes and live bands every weekend. Now the site is strewn with wreckage and debris. The interiors of the planes are still in reasonable condition, although litter left behind by urban explorers is becoming a problem. In the final years of the Cold War, Soviet engineers were working on an aircraft that they felt sure would give them an aerial supremacy over not only the Americans, but the rest of the world. That plane was the Antonov AN-225, one of the largest planes ever conceived of. Only one working model has ever been built, which was completed in 1998 and still gets the occasional outing today to delight crowds of onlookers. Her sister plane has been languishing in a state of near completion for 30 years and can currently be found hiding in a warehouse on the outskirts of Kiev. Antonov was caught short by the collapse of the Soviet Union, at which point the project was abandoned and the plane was left in its current state. The story may not be over though. Antonov says that they hope to return to this plane and finally finish what they started on the 260-foot-long behemoth of the skies. All they need is someone to come up with the $300 million they need in order to finish the job. Somebody had very grand plans for the Gate 88 shopping mall in Bali, close to Kuta Beach. It was imagined as a nirvana for shoppers, topped off by an extravagant piece of sculpture art, the rear of a McDonnell Douglas DC-10 plane on the roof. We imagine that shipping and installing this old plane must have cost several $100,000. That's a real shame, because the plans for the Gate 88 Mall fell through and the facility never did a single day's trading. The plane once belonged to British Caledonian Airways, who sold it to an American cargo company, which in turn sold it to a Zimbabwean firm. It was finally scrapped in Jakarta before the rear of the fuselage ended up suffering this undignified fate. An elevator in the abandoned mall actually opens out into the middle of the plane, And if you're ever in the area, a security guard will let you in to take some pictures if you pay them a small fee. The B24 Liberator, a plane that was used by the U.S. military during World War II, would be a difficult thing to lose. With a wingspan of 100 feet, it should be fairly easy to see from above, even if you do lose it on a crash landing. That didn't stop Lady Be Good, arguably the most famous plane of its class, vanishing for 15 years. Lady Be Good set off on a bombing mission on April 4, 1943, looking to attack Italy from a base in Libya. She got lost in bad weather and couldn't see the harbor she was supposed to attack. Her captain radioed back to base to say the navigation systems had failed, and that was the last anyone heard of her. It wasn't until 1958 that a team searching for places to drill for oil came across the plane 310 miles from its Libyan base. It appeared the crew had attempted to parachute out, and the plane was left to crash land. Considering she hit the ground without anyone at the controls, she doesn't look too bad. We'd love to tell you why there's a Tupolev Tu-134 in a field near Riga Airport in Skolte, but nobody knows. The airport says that it isn't theirs, and it's outside their land, so it's not their responsibility. Nobody else wants to take responsibility for it either, and so it's sat where it's at for more than 30 years. As you can imagine, after 30 years, it's little more than a shell. Anything that might have been valuable inside the plane has long since been taken away for scrap and sale. Now the only thing you'll ever find inside it is a party. The plane has become a focal point for young people in the area who routinely step inside it and turn it into an unconventional nightclub. Sometimes it even gets fitted out with special disco lights, as you can see in some of these pictures. We're surprised the authorities haven't put a stop to this practice, but we suppose there's no harm done if nobody gets hurt. At least people still come to visit this plane, which is more than you can say about several of the abandoned aircraft we've talked about. Because it's a mostly white plane buried against a backdrop of pure white snow, you might completely miss the wreck of the Pegasus if you don't know where to look for it. The C-121 Lockheed Constellation plane crashed close to McMurdo Station in New Zealand October 8, 1970. It was a snowy, stormy day even by Antarctic standards, and visibility was close to zero as the pilot came in to land. The wind was so severe that parts of the exterior paneling and landing gear were ripped away from the plane as it got closer to the ground, but amazingly, nobody was badly hurt by the crash landing. The plane skidded across the ice and came to a crunching halt in a pile of snow. Salvage was impossible, and so it's remained in place ever since. It's become such an accepted part of the local landscape that the whole airfield has since been renamed Pegasus Airfield in honor of its permanent resident. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.